Okay, good. Okay, yeah, I'm making sure the microphone's picking me up. I did this already, didn't like how it came out because I like slid totally off topic, but let's try again. About listening to Loki when we don't want to, when he suggests something. He suggested, I put in how I really felt about this game. You remember the Nature Treks VR I showed you? Probably didn't seem fantastic in 2D. You really do have to experience VR with the headset on. I mean, it's kind of unfair to show people this kind of flat recording of what you went through in 3D. Anyhow, I used to play that game every day, and I was really enjoying it. It was the greatest game in the world. I went in yesterday, and there's this update, and he said he fixed some stuff. And the way he said it, it sounded like it was going to stay where it was forever. I'm like, okay. I go in to play it, and instead of walking through the woods, I felt like I was crawling on my belly. I know I'm short. I know, like, 5'4" is short, but I wasn't any taller than, like, the grass or the weeds. It felt like I was crawling through this environment. And instead of, I really tried to make the best of it. I really did. I was like, oh, I can pretend to be a hobbit, la 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 la. It wasn't relaxing. It was like, everywhere I looked, instead of seeing the trees and everything, my main field of view was like all the grasses that were almost as tall as me. You could see everything else, but it was really distracting. And I went in the rivers, and it kind of seemed almost like it was a little better on the rivers, but I was like, well, you have to walk over the ground to get to the rivers, and I didn't buy this game just to like play in the water all the time. So I wrote an honest review, and I said, now I feel like I'm crawling away in a horror movie. Like, you know how the perspective, the camera angle is always down low, and you're like seeing all the weeds or leaves or whatever, like right up close. That's what it felt like. And I said, I was disappointed because I played the game every day. And I actually went back and I said, I honestly I uninstalled it. I even reinstalled it and tried it again to see if the problem was on my end, and it wasn't. Now, I know for developers, it's hard to make a game that works for everyone. VR doesn't work the way a normal game works. I know it's boring some of you, but depending on how the person has set up their sensors, that can make a huge difference. Like, if I would set my sensors the wrong way when I go into my homepage, my chin will be, like, jutting through the floor of, like, my home area. It doesn't matter if it's Steam or it's Oculus. But if I set them up right, I'm at, like, what feels like a comfortable height to me. Anyhow, I go back today, and the developer got back to me. He apologized for me not enjoying the experience anymore. And he says, I actually went back in and fixed things. And he says, this game's actually giving me a headache because every time he goes to fix things, when one thing gets fixed, something else gets knocked out of order. So I appreciated that. I appreciated that he took the time to fix it. So I went back in, I was playing it. And it seemed like at first when I was turning my head, like to the left or right, like everything was kind of like shaking. I was like, uh-oh. But it calmed down after a while. As the switched environments calmed down. I thought, well, let's make sure it isn't just certain environments. So I left the game, went back in, everything ran smoothly. So I went back and I wrote a totally different review, and I, said, I'm glad that they keep working on it, because I understand as they keep adding stuff in, it's throwing everything else off. And I have wanted to say that to that guy, to say that your game's unplayable now, because he was getting so much harsher already, and it was like performance issues, and all this crazy stuff he had to answer to, and it was kind of unfair. And I did not want to add to all that craziness. I mean, it is valid for gamers to say, hey, this isn't doing this isn't doing that, but I'm not one of those people who sit there and measure the frame rate or aspect ratio or anything. If it plays and I can enjoy it, I don't care what frame rate it's running at or anything else. But, I'm not saying those people are wrong. That's just not one of my prime concerns. It's like, my father was very technical in photography, and cared about all the little numbers, and I was like, I couldn't care less as long as the picture comes out pretty. I don't care what I sit on. So, Loki can lead us to do things we kind of hesitant to do, because that could have went the way it went. It could have went well, or the developer could have like had one complaint too many and blew up in my face and said, fine, uninstall the game, or he could have completely ignored me. Anything could have happened. But in this case, it worked out. And sometimes Loki does lead us to stuff where, we don't want to do it. He is assuring us it's okay, and we're like, no, I'm not doing that, Loki. I don't feel comfortable. And we usually have valid reasons. My valid reason was I didn't want to add to all the trouble this guy was having, but at the same time the game was no longer playable, so I was kind of stuck in the middle, and Loki's like, you have to say something. You'll notice I did not curse the guy out, and I did not say, I want my money back, and da-da-da-da. Because I'd already played it for hours and hours and got enjoyment out of it, but suddenly it was unplayable, and I'm like, oh, I'm disappointed. So, and that didn't mean that I didn't get angry. I mean, as I was playing it and it wasn't working, I'm like, rah, 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 rah. He fixed it for these idiots that can't set up their sensors and rah, 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 rah. I was pretty hot, but I made sure that when I went and I left the thing, I was still angry at the time, but I wasn't like blazing hot, and I was able to put it down rationally, and I finally uninstalled the game. But luckily things worked out. Maybe you're at the point where he's asking you to do something, maybe not like register a complaint on a video game, obviously, that's kind of oddly specific, but maybe it's something that you should do it, but you're giving yourself reasons why you can't. You don't want to hurt someone's feelings. You'd feel bad or guilty if you did it. And I'm not saying, like, if Loki's suggesting wrong things. If Loki's suggesting wrong things, that may not be Loki you're hearing, okay? But you might feel guilty about doing it. Like, you might feel guilty about taking better care of yourself because you put everyone else first. Or you might feel guilty about complaining because you're told, and not complaining, bringing things to somebody's attention because you were told nice people never do that. Or whatever have you. It might be very hard for you to show you're disappointed or whatever you're struggling with. It might be hard to go to your boss and say, hey, I've been doing more work. I think I deserve more compensation. And I understand that. I've been in the work environment myself. I know what it's like to have to go up to your boss and say, hey, you're having me do all this extra work, but I'm not seeing, a pay raise. What's happening here? And it's legitimate to bulk at doing stuff because we're always afraid of, like, the absolute worst is going to happen, like the ground's going to open up and swallow us or something. But, that's usually not the case. I'd say if you feel that it's Loki telling you to do something, it's not just you telling you in your head because you want to hear it. Like, if Loki suddenly tells me to start going to Dairy Queen every day and getting butterscotch sundaes, I'm pretty sure that's me talking to myself. But if you feel him pushing you gently or not so gently towards something and you don't want to do it, I understand being there. I understand you could be afraid or upset or mad or whatever. But if you meet him halfway, if you're like, okay, I'll try a tiny bit, he'll usually be a lot more gracious about it. You don't want him to get to the scruff you like a kitten point and look at you and be like, you're doing this or else. But if you meet him halfway on the stuff you don't want to do, he will work with you. Now, again, it's important to make sure it's Loki we're hearing and not ourselves. Loki isn't going to guilt you into talking to abusers. Loki's not going to guilt you into, like, forgiving people. We're not Christians. Loki doesn't have the Christian concept of, 70 times 7 or whatever it is. Loki's like, every time this person touches, not touches you, interacts with you, they hurt you. How much more do you need? And he doesn't have 2 cents for bloodlines or anything else. He's like, how much more abuse do you have to go through before you say no? And he can help you work through more serious stuff like that as well. And it's not my place to say go do something I've never done, but that's when we have to work with Loki. But in general, if you're hearing something negative, it's probably you talking to yourself in Loki's voice, and we all do it. We all write ourselves down, and we kind of do it in Loki's voice because we're like, well, I'm gonna make myself feel bad today because I deserve it, and who better to make me feel bad than Loki? And then Loki comes along, and he's like, "What are you doing?" And you're like, "Well, you said." And he's like, "I never said that." So yeah, it takes discernment. I mean, look, he's not going to big us up all the time, tell us we're wonderful, but he's not going to criticize every little thing we do or push us into bad decisions. Loki's never going to tell me to go skydiving because he knows I would panic, never pull the ripcord, and go splat on the ground. So, it takes time to learn discernment. And I hope that helped, but it helped me and it ended up helping the developer because the developer was actually getting feedback. And I don't think I have this psychic power that I could sense what he felt, but it felt like the poor guy kept getting every complaint instead of, hey, you're doing good, man. So I think it's just one guy doing this. Oh my god. And it's like this poor guy is trying to create a virtual world for people. And I hope he knows if he would strangely ever see this, and he probably won't. He's doing the best he can. Whether it's him or it's a crew, they're doing the best they can to create a virtual world, and that's a pretty daunting task. So, it's okay to listen to Loki when he is asking you to do something and you have your reservations. So if you guys like what you see, like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you later. Bye-bye.